In this video, I'm going to teach you about a principle that if you follow, your life will improve in more ways than you can ever imagine. Now, this principle that I'm going to be talking about, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for the people that want to be average, because it requires a lot from you to adopt this principle, truly adopt it, not just half-ass it. But when you do, I assure you that your life will improve in so many ways. You become so successful in all aspects of your life. So the principle I'm speaking about today is brutal self-accountability, extreme ownership. Now, what exactly does that mean? That basically means that, in simple terms, every single thing that happens in your life is your fault, the good and the bad. Even if it's not true, right? Even if it's not true. For example, like I made a post about this yesterday. I was jumping in my car. I had a packet of groceries with me, and I jumped in the car. My hand was full. I left the door open slightly, and then I put the packet down in the car. And before I could even close the door, a big gust of wind just blew the door into the car next to me, and it banged the car next to me. Right now, there was a guy sitting in the car. He was initially upset. He got out. He was like, "Well, why'd you do that?" You know, I apologized to him. I said, "I'm sorry. It was the wind." Right. I told him that the reason it happened was because of the wind, and he was okay with it. There was no damage on either car, so it wasn't very hard. However, after he got back in his car, after I got back in my car and I drove off, I started to reflect on that situation, and I realized that I did not take extreme ownership of that situation. You know, some people watching this may just see that, oh, it's normal, it's an accident, it happened, it's part of life. However, if you're someone like me, someone that doesn't want to be average, someone wants to be, extremely competent in all areas of life, I was upset with myself that I gave ownership away in that situation. Because, like, yes, while it is true that the wind did blow the door into the car, and I can't control the wind. However, it's also true that I could have held the door closely throughout. Once I jumped in the car, I could have kept one hand on the door while I put the packet down to ensure that if the wind does come or if something else does happen, I have control over the situation. So, looking back on that, I shouldn't have told him it was because of the wind, because it was my fault, because I didn't hold the door. Now, this is a weird example, right? This is not really relative to like everything else I speak about on this channel, but the reason I'm speaking about this example specifically is to emphasize the point of you applying this to not just one area of your life, but to all aspects of your life. Even simple things like a car door, right? Because now that I reflected on that situation, I gave myself feedback. Moving forward, I'm going to be even more careful to know that whenever I do jump in a car, in the back of my mind, I'm going to know that I need to keep my hand on the door to ensure that if ever a wind, gust of wind does blow, it's not going to blow and hit the next car behind me. Right? I've learned from the situation. Andrew Tate says it, right? If you go out in the rain and you get wet, that's your fault. Could you have controlled the rain? No. Could you have checked the weather app and came prepared beforehand? Yes, you could have, right? But like if you just wandered through life, letting life happen to you, not taking extreme ownership of the situation, you're just like a feather in the wind. Life's gonna happen to you. But if you're someone like me that wants to, be competent, be a savage, be a beast in all aspects of life, you need to happen to life. You need to make shit happen. And one of the best ways to do that is to have extreme ownership on every single situation you face, not just the bad situations, even the good situations, right? Like if we analyze this on a deeper level, when good things happen to you in your life, ask yourself, how often do you truly reflect and are proud of, and be proud of yourself and say that you made that happen? Or do you sometimes think you got lucky or think it wasn't your fault? You know, this is something I used to do a lot when I got in sales. Like when I would close a deal, I would think to myself, that was a good prospect. That was a good lead. I would put the ownership onto the person, not onto me. Now, when I close a deal, that's because of me. I made that happen. I was able to ask good questions and get them to have enough urgency to close on the call. It's my fault that they closed. Whether they were a good prospect or not, it's still my fault. Same goes for a bad prospect, right? Today I had a call with someone. They were not open to answering my questions, right? And they just wanted to know the price, know about the program. And I told them, no, that's not how this works. Okay. This is how the process goes. It's either you can stick to the process before we get into price, or we can end the call here. Right. Obviously before that I did try to say it in a lighter tone, but it didn't work out. Even he just decided he wants to end the call. Now looking back on that, I still see that as my fault because I could have done a better job at making him feel more comfortable, making him feel more safe to answer my questions because he had resistance. He didn't want to answer questions about his goals and that sort of stuff. But it's still my fault for not coming across in a way that allows him to open up, or not being able to reframe him effectively to then want to answer my questions. Like old me would have just reflected on that call and said, he was a trash lead, you know. And it may be true, right? But saying he's a trash lead doesn't give me any power over the situation, because then I'm just not going to reflect, not going to learn from that call. I'm just going to put all the ownership onto him and write it off as a trash lead. However, now I see that as my fault. Because it's my fault, I can change that moving forward. I can now reflect on the call, see what I could have done better to improve from it and learn moving forward. This is why this principle is so powerful. And it's a very hard principle to adopt at a high level. Like, obviously, you can watch this video now and start to implement it, but like when little things happen in your life, you'll notice that you will slip up, right? When something happens at, like, I don't know, I like to use driving as an example, right? I reflecting back on another incident that happened to me a few years ago. I was waiting at the robot, like at the stop street, right? And I was the first car ahead, like at the light. The robot was red, and a car hit me from the back. They didn't slow down in time, and they smashed the back of my car. Boom! The glass shattered, bumper smashed all the way in. It was it wasn't a serious accident. They weren't going too fast, but it was enough to do some serious damage on the car. Now, reflecting back on that situation, most people would just say that's not their fault, right? Because they had the robot, you're supposed to stop. The car behind them, they're supposed to stop, right? That they shouldn't hit me. It's their fault that happened, right? But that's not me. Like, even though they should have stopped, they didn't stop. So because they didn't stop, it's my fault for not being aware enough, not being perspicacious enough to predict that quicker, put my car in gear, and put the pedal to the floor and move out the way before they can hit me. Now, some of you watching this might listen to that and think, I shouldn't have to do that. And the truth is, you shouldn't, right? But being able to do that allows you to operate on such a higher level than the average person. Because I'll be honest with you, that day the car smashed me, I saw them in the mirror. Whenever I'm at the robot, I'm always analyzing the situation. I'm always looking for possible threats, looking at the cars behind me, next to me, people in front of me. Anyway, I saw the car coming from behind me. And as he was getting closer, I'm looking at him and realizing he's not slowing down quick enough to stop before he hits me. And then before he hit me, a few seconds before that, I actually did put my car into gear to try and get out the way. Because I already predict these things. I already anticipate, worst case scenarios. And I'm ready for those situations. Obviously, reflecting back, I didn't react quick enough in that moment to avoid the accident, right? But the point I'm making is that because I saw that as my fault, there have been so many instances after that where the same thing could have happened. But because I was aware, because I took accountability of the first situation and I saw that as my fault, I was then able to avoid that from happening. So many times people came in hot from behind me. And because I was paying attention, Because if you pay attention, you have more time. And if you have more time, you have more options to react to the situation. That allowed me to put my car in drive and move forward and avoid another accident. Only because I took extreme ownership of the situation the first time it happened to me. Okay. Now, that's why this is so powerful. Because, like, imagine that's just an example, like in the real world. Imagine if you apply that way of thinking to a goal you want to achieve, you know, whether that's your health or your fitness, right? Or you're making money online, whatever the case is, right? Like when it comes to your health and fitness, you know, you could have a busy job, you could have no time, you know, and that could be, you could use it as a reason of why you can't get in shape, you know. But if you take extreme ownership of the situation, you will know that it's your fault that you can't find the time. Or if we go a layer deeper, it's your fault that you are in that job and you're settling for working at that job. If that job is truly a reason why you can't achieve your goal, which in 99% of the time it's not, but if it is in your case, then why are you settling for that? Find something different, make a change. You have the power to do that. So why do you settle for a life that you're not happy with? And the reason is because you don't see everything to be your fault. Right? When life happens to you, you just see it as part of life. When anything happens to you, you see it as, oh, that's just the way it is. You know, that's just the cards I've been dealt. That's just the person I am. No, that's who you're choosing to be. You don't have to believe what's true, right? Even if it is true that, you know, the odds are stacked against you, even if it is true that, you know, you're disabled and you can't find a job, it may not be your fault that you got disabled, but it is your problem. And it's your problem to fix. And the best way you can solve any problem in your life is to believe that everything is your fault. And not just act like you believe it, but like truly believe it. And the results you will see in your life from adopting this mindset and adopting this principle will be life changing. And trust me, like I said at the start of the video, this is not an easy way to live life. But if you want to be great, if you want to be competent, if you want to be a top 1% of humans, this is how you can choose to operate. And like if you do this in this area of your life, like your life will improve so quick in so many ways you can't even imagine. Because everything that happens to you, you know that that's because you made it happen, or it was your fault, the good and the bad. So if there's one takeaway I want you to take from this video, is just live life knowing that whatever happens to you is your fault. And if it's your fault, you have control of the situation. You can change the situation. And an exercise you can do, like after watching this video, like if you took any value from this and you want to adopt this kind of mindset, which I highly recommend you do if you want to be, you know, successful, is to reflect back on your day, you know, like I did yesterday. You know, at the end of your day, think about all the moments you gave away responsibility of the situation, or you never take ownership of the situation, right? It could be little things like, I don't even know, like, let me think of another example. My mind's blank. But yeah, the point I'm trying to make though, like, don't hold yourself back. Even though it's scary, even though it's hard, even though it's a difficult way to live life, trust me when I say this, it will change your life in more ways than you can imagine. And at first, it's going to be hard. You're going to find a lot of resistance to live life this way, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And it makes you feel so much. You just feel like you're in control of everything in your life. You don't feel like a victim anymore. Because I used to live life as if I'm a victim, life just happening to me. But with this way of thinking and adopting this principle, life no longer happens to you, my friend. You happen to life. And you grab life by the horns and make it your bitch. And not many men are brave enough to do that. Why? Because it's easier to believe everything's not your fault. It's easier to believe that when things don't go your way, it's because of XYZ external reason. That's easier to believe. That's what 99% of the world believe. And that's why 99% of the world will stay average. But if you change and you adopt this way of thinking, no matter what happens to you, you can change the situation. And if you can change the situation, you can change the outcome you want to achieve. So that's it for today's video. It was a bit of a different one, but I hope you found some value in this. And if you made it this far, as always, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have an amazing day and stay safe.